Bienvenido. Welcome, everybody. My name is Stephanie Whitland, one of the MBA admissions officers at the Stanford GSB, and I'll be moderating our event this evening. During the next 45 minutes or so, we'll have an opportunity to hear from a wonderful group of GSB alumni who have joined us for this evening. They're here to answer your questions, so please be sure to use the chat feature. I'm sorry, not the chat feature, the Q&A feature, and I will put questions from there along the way. So thank you all again for being here. Let's get started by welcoming our alumni panelists who have generously given their time this evening to be here today. So I'm going to turn it over. Let's go in order that your name appears on the slide. And if you can just introduce yourself by sharing your name, your class year, and what has been your most impactful or memorable academic experience at the GSB. I'll turn it over to Alejandro.
All right, Stephanie, thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Alejandro Guerra Escames. I am a 2010 graduate. And my most memorable experience at the GSB, as far as classroom experience, was managing growing enterprises with Joel Peterson back then. So I currently run a manufacturing company that's a spin-off from a larger company that took place in 2014. And I've been using what I learned in Joel's class almost every day since 2014. It's been a challenge. It's fun, but it is by far the class I use the most on a daily basis.
Thank you. All right.
This is Ana Garza from Monterrey, Mexico. I'm class of 09. And well, I'm doing real estate now, and Alejandro stole my line because I think I was also thinking what's my most memorable experience, and I have to say that entrepreneurship related classes like managing growing enterprises, where you get the chance in a friendly environment to learn how to hire, fire, and deal with scandals and whatnot, that at the end when you're running companies, and I've been managing and running real estate, bigger real estate companies and projects right now. Well, you encounter all of these things in the day to day, and it's good to have had a training before being set on real life and managing companies. And I think this entrepreneurship classes not only help you if you own a company or run a company. At the end of the day, we are all entrepreneurs in organizations, and we run areas. So I think this is very helpful and impactful regardless of what you do.
Thank you, Ana. All right. I believe Diego still hasn't had an opportunity. Oh, you're there. Hi, Diego.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining.
Sorry, I obviously joined the wrong Zoom link, so I was a participant for a while, but managed to find my way to the room. So this did feel a lot like the first day at the GSB. So hi everyone, I'm Diego Arguelles. I'm from Mexico City, and then I went to ITAM in Mexico City, and that sort of segues into my most memorable academic experience. It was interesting that Stephanie was very clear about it being the academic experience and not everything else, because there's some interesting stories outside of class. But I think for me, I was coming into the GSB, I was very aware of what the big classes at the GSB were. What I was not necessarily as aware of was everything that was outside GSB and how much freedom the GSB gave you to go and explore things across the street, as they say. So for me, just being exposed to those things beyond sort of the classic realm of business, things like going to the D school, going to the engineering quad, as well as some of the classes at the GSB that are not necessarily business focused, but are sort of go beyond that and allow me to delve into those interesting intellectual pursuits were super interesting and super fulfilling and motivating. So happy to chat about that.
Great, thanks, Diego. All right, Guillermo.
Hello, everybody. My name is Guillermo. I'm from the class of MBA 2013. For the GSB, I used to work in chemicals and manufacturing. Now I work in automotive. One of my most memorable is when I say MGE as well, managing growing enterprises. But formation of new ventures is a really similar class that really you almost I mean in every single class you're talking with entrepreneurs, with people who launched both successful and ventures that were not so successful, and in the end what it helps you to realize is that the world is created by people who were not any smarter than you, or that had any more abilities or things to do. It was just when you're willing to do something different in that, and that helps a lot. Be it if you're an entrepreneur or entrepreneur, it just helps you to lose the fear of doing something different. That the world is created by people like us. It's not geniuses that are working around.
Okay. Thank you. And Jesus?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jesus, but everybody calls me Chucho, so now you know. I'm originally from Puebla, although I have been working for Cemex for quite a while. And unlike Diego, I'm not surprised that Stephanie is making us this specific question, because, I mean, we need to talk about the academic experience, because otherwise everybody will start talking about what happens outside of the classrooms. So we need to focus a little bit on the academics, I think. If I have to choose, I mean, I have a few that I loved, like, for example, a neuroscience approach to marketing that literally blew my mind. I mean, you really understand the brain and the connections that happen inside, and how you can use that science towards, I mean, marketing and sales and so forth. But I would say that probably my most, let's say, memorable academic experience had to do with economics. I'm a mechanical engineer myself, and I have, I mean, been considered in many circles like a glitch in the matrix. Alejandro knows me well. I mean, for example, I'm the capitalist of my family, and I was the socialist at Stanford. So it has always been kind of funny, and I decided to give it a shot. And I'm saying economics because I took all the economic classes that I could. Specifically, two come to mind. One with accelerated microeconomics with David Krebs. I mean, absolutely mind-blowing. It's literally, I mean, it's economics for non-economic and non-financial guys, and at a very accelerated pace. And that was like trying to drink water from a fire hose. It was absolutely challenging, the most challenging class I have ever had. And it really made me feel comfortable with the generalist that I am. And second, I mean, together with that one was the one given by Ed Lassier. He was the senior economic advisor to the White House for a while. And I mean, I took a couple classes with him, but the one that I want to tell you about is HR based on economics. It's mind blowing. And for a guy, once again, a mechanical engineer, I mean, trying to put the nuts and bolts into something that is, I mean, more an art than a science as HR with basis on economics was out of this world. So it's, I mean, I'm just trying to give you an example that it really made me feel comfortable as a generalist, and the glitch in the mind, in the matrix that I'm telling you guys.
Thank you, Jesus. That was great. All right, and then we'll finish up with Marielle, and then I'll open it up to the audience to ask some questions.
Oh, hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you here today. My name's Marielle. I'm class of 2016, and I'm from Mexico City. I still live in Mexico City, or came back to live in Mexico City. My favorite academic experience, I should probably say, one of the across the street classes, oil prices. It finally put an end to the dream of becoming like a true chemical engineer, which is what I studied when I was young. And I just finally understood that was not going to be my industry in the future. So I have that one to thank for at least getting me on the right path. And then, but I think the ones I enjoy the most at the GSB, actually, like Jesus, were the economic ones. I had never had that formation, and seeing a lot of math applied to very diverse things like HR. I especially loved Ed Lassier's incentive economics. And so I ended up working at on the marketing side of Amazon for a while, in charge of everything, deals and promotions that you see at the Amazon store. And I cannot tell you how much I remember Ed Lassier talking about incentives, economics, and me like explaining to peers at Amazon like how we were going to use discounts as part of our strategy to become an attractive store for customers to keep coming back and shop with us.
There's a lot of interest around the economics courses. It sounds like it's quite the professor. So thank you all for sharing. So this first question is mostly directed to either Alejandro or Ana, so the two of you can decide if you want to both contribute. This person is calling in from Mexico City and said, I'd be very interested in your views on Stanford's entrepreneurial community and related academic resources that have helped you to achieve your goals.
Anna, you want to go? You start. I'll follow.
Well, I think, I mean, definitely the entrepreneurial spirit of just being in Silicon Valley and the type of, even if you're not taking entrepreneurship specific classes, you're always exposed to people who have started businesses throughout the different classes you take, right? So I think for me, having basically guest speakers all the time coming in to expose cases or giving, more like, at 1 p.m. that we had the general kind of speakers coming in to talk to everybody. I think being exposed to that, it's very powerful. I think as mentioned, the entrepreneurship classes, I think the curriculum is very, very good, very hands-on, but as several have mentioned, it's not only specific to business, but you can do a lot of across the street classes and start really, there's a lot of cases of people, I'm not one of them, but that developed products or developed companies working with the School of Medicine or design and different areas. So I think that's very powerful, and that you get in Stanford. Definitely the community in Stanford, for me, we might not have the biggest alumni network, but we definitely have the strongest one, and that's something that for me it's very powerful to have. People will always answer, will always connect you, will always respond to emails. So having those connections wherever you want to start a business, there's always an alumni that is willing to help you or open a door or solve any questions wherever you're doing. So I think that's also, as an entrepreneur, having not only the network within your class, but outside in the alumni network to start in any business. I personally think that's very powerful, and I've had a lot of cases where I've reached out or they've reached out to me, and I think for an entrepreneur, that is priceless, having a very strong not only class but alumni network. And
thank you. Thanks so much. Alejandro, anything you want to add?
Yeah, just to follow up, I mean, the school caters to a very broad set of interests, right? You can go in focused on being an entrepreneur, or you can go in with an idea of entrepreneurship. But what is true, and what at least I found, is if you're interested in that direction, you will have plenty of opportunities to get involved, to create, to even co-partner during business school. So as an example, two of my roommates built the company together during business school and sold it a few years later. I know 3 or 4 classmates that were partners at some point in time during their professional careers post-business school. And just to add to Anna's point, there are a breadth of opportunities to dive deep into a specific sector within entrepreneurship, right? You want to go into fintech, or you want to start something that's more into renewable energy. I took a class across the street in renewable energy. So I'm not going to compare to other schools, but being in Silicon Valley, it's tough to beat the entrepreneurial atmosphere that Stanford will provide.
Thank you. Thanks, Alejandro. All right, I'm going to go on to one that I think each of you can probably contribute in your own way, though you don't all have to answer it. This is from Moro, and he's asking, can you tell me how the GSB helped achieve your professional goals? And in some cases where some of you had actually changed location or industry, how you were able to do that.
Okay, if no one if no one wants to jump in, I can take that.
Go for it, Jesus.
Well, I mean, Stanford, I mean, the GSB experience in general has helped me professionally every day since I left. I think it's truly one experience that stretches all of your capabilities. I mean, you get into a let's say, a very limited group in terms of size, in which you will find, I mean, people that is fantastic in so many levels, and guys that are crazy good at things you never imagined. I mean, guys that can make mathematic models like in a napkin that could solve things that I mean, could really invent something new. But at the same time, I mean, you find that there is a reason why you are part of the group, and you truly can help within the community improve some of those aspects that probably those people are not very good at. And at that sense, as I was telling you, I really felt comfortable in my own skin during my time in Stanford. I have always been a sort of a apprehensive type of guy before I went to school. And when I was in Stanford, I learned that many times failure is part of the process of truly achieving your goals, and that if you don't try, you will never know if you could, right? So probably this is a very simplistic view, but it's one of the most valuable learnings that I took from Stanford. So when I brought that to my own very personal experience, I learned that the relevant thing to be successful is, first of all, to make sure that you as a leader are fulfilling your role properly and are guiding those people working with you towards a shared goal or an overarching goal, right? Second, I have changed, I mean, so many times from country to country and from position to position, doing things that, I mean, range from investor relations and finance, strategy, now commercial development. And one of the things that I was truly transformed in Stanford is that I learned how to identify the strengths in the people and try to balance out my teams properly. And for me in specific, one of my goals professionally was to help this company that I work in have a more open approach towards business and a more inclusive culture. And I think in that sense, it has helped me every day since I graduated. So I would tell you that probably you can enter with a very fixed idea, but then you identify that learning along the way is also good. I mean, just enjoying your day-to-day work and just being able to work in many countries and learn from my colleagues in Stanford. It really has allowed me to identify the humbleness that is necessary for a successful team to transcend. That's probably the 2 cents that I would try to bring to the table right now.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else have anything to add?
I could.
Go ahead.
Irma?
Seguro. I would add, I used Stanford GSB resources for my career right after graduation, for the first 2 years right after graduation, about 5 times. And so the first time was, I kind of almost fell in love with a teacher, right? So she happened to be the CFO of Oracle. And although she was not a faculty member, she taught M&A at Stanford. I reached out to her, and she got me some of my first interviews as I was about to leave the school. Did not end up at Oracle, in case you were wondering. And then it was through a classmate that I was put in touch with my first job out of the GSB. It was a private equity firm in Menlo Park. And so I was there my first year out of GSB. Then as I decided to explore more options and leave my finance life behind, I, as an alumni, went back to GSB and used the career office to help me out think through what it was that I wanted to do as I left finance, and what was the industry I wanted to land in. They actually helped me reach out to other alumni, not just from my class, to understand the different options and roles in different industries. You know, it helped a lot. That's when that one network is just absolutely marvelous about. They will answer your emails and your calls and give you a lot of their time to make sure you're making a good decision for yourself. And I am so grateful. And finally, it was through a friend. I was just doing networking, investigating what was my new industry. And it was one of my classmates from GSB who was like, why don't you call my brother? He's at Amazon. He can talk to you about, what does Amazon do and what kind of jobs they have. And when I called his brother, not only did he explain Amazon, he basically pushed me to applying to Amazon, and tada, here I am. So those are the different resources I've used for Amazon to, in my first 2 years out of the school, switch industry, even get 2 jobs, and then switch industry.
Great. Thanks, Mario. Guillermo, I'll go over to you if you want to add anything, and then I'll move to another question.
Okay. So building on these answers is, I would say Stanford not only opens up that horizon, not only professionally, but also personally. I mean, yes, I wanted to take classes on strategy, on finance, on marketing, but I took classes like designing happiness. Where else are you going to take a class like that? One class that we call Touchy Feely, which is about interpersonal dynamics, about understanding how others perceive you and how to have honest and meaningful conversations with them. But at the same time, it pushes you to realize about what do you want to get from your life. Not only this part of the professional stuff, which is really important, but also what do you want to get outside of that. And that for me was enlightening. My wife used to tell me, wait a minute, now we're arguing on a different level. I mean, we can lead to a resolution. You're communicating better. You're talking about emotions, feelings, and other stuff that I would have never expected to get that from the GSB. So what I'm trying to say is, it is not only that you're getting the best professional education in the world, but it is also helping you to understand what do you want from the broader life, everything of that. So for me, that was truly refreshing, truly a surprise, and was worth all the time that I spent there.
Thank you. Open up a question that really relates to the experience at the GSB and what the culture was like, and also things that you were able to get involved in outside of the classroom. So can anyone speak to either clubs or activities or things that you participated in outside the classroom?
I can give it a quick shot. So I led the Mexico study trip during my second year. So we brought something like 45 students from all over the world to an introduction into our country. One of the best experiences I had during business school. I was part of the Stanford Ski Club, which was not an official club, but we had a blast. I was part of a wine club, which was, I think, semi-official, but we also had a blast. There's a lot more stuff to do than you'll have time to do. So, I mean, half the experience, or more than half the experience, it depends who you ask, happens outside the classroom. And the most memorable aspect of your business school experience will be the overall package. Spending time outside class is amongst some of the coolest people you'll ever meet. Is in and of itself worthwhile.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Alejandro.
I don't know if it's still going on, but back in my days, we used to have the Taco Nines. Well, the talks, like people, it's organized by students. It's not something curricular, but people, every Monday, it used to be back then, Monday night, somebody from the class would talk about something very personal, right? It could be part of their life story, something that changed them. And I think for me, being able to listen to my classmates and get to know them in a very different perspective, it was kind of like, you know, in an hour you got to know your classmates in a very different dimension, very different from classroom work or professionally. It was more like a deep dive into something that really impacted them or changed them personally. And I've never heard of that happening anywhere else in any other school. And I just think the opportunity of really getting to know somebody so in a very deep and personal way changes so much, because I think you now get to, when you see the person, you understand where they're coming from, and it's just such a powerful experience to be able to get to know your classmates in different ways. But this one, the Taco Nines or the Talks 09, because I'm class of 09, but from each class, I think it's something that was very powerful. And I maybe never in a lunch at school or in at drinks, you would have never get to go that deep. And it was just an opportunity to get to know classmates in a very different dimension that I really value.
Yeah, if I can just sort of add and expand on that, I think I agree with Anna. I think talk is the most sort of quintessential GSP experience, right? It's 200 people get together in a room to hear about somebody else's life stories, and I think to the original question of how does the vibe look like, how does the experience? For me, that was like the most amazing thing of the whole 2.5 years that I was there. Is I think part of it is because we're in a small town and there's not that much to do in Palo Alto, to be honest. The whole community is very, very invested in making sure that the community itself is very entertained, right? So, people do talks. Alejandro led the study trip. It's basically the student body trying to create something for the rest of the student body. It feels like it's like this massive potluck of things and experiences and clubs and courses, and everybody's bringing something to the table. And because the group is so diverse, you literally have 100 different interests there. So for me that was like the most important and the most sort of heartwarming thing of the whole experience. Is it's us entertaining sort of ourselves and sharing the things that you care about and you're passionate about. And you will always find more people who have like a shared interest. And that was just very, very liberating.
I think part of the question was also about the culture at school. And probably all of these things show glimpses, but if I may make a small comment regarding the culture, it has to do with the level of risk that we feel comfortable taking during the MBA. I have the blessing of being accepted to more than one institution. And something that really caught my attention, from the GSB, was the fact that disclosing your grades, is not allowed. Unless you are really part of the bottom 5 or whatever, right? So, as I was telling, I come in Mexico from a culture in which you are graded in a curve, and if you are, part of the best, you can always be considered cream of the crop. But in Stanford, I received emails that the night prior to the final exams, sharing notes from my classmates. And that culturally really blew my mind. It's the effort of someone that I barely know, sharing his experiences, knowledge, and so forth, so that everybody does well in the test. That's something that doesn't happen every day, and that truly invites you to give your best, not only in the classes, but in the things that you will probably have more experience than the rest. And it truly shaped my life during the GSB experience and after the GSB experience. I mean, it's something that I think is so different than other schools in which you, I mean, are graded publicly and compared, I mean, against everybody else, and you just feel that in the DNA of the class.
Thank you, Jesus. This is for all of you are obviously working in Mexico at the moment. Can you explain what that transition might have looked like? A lot of the folks on the audience today are curious about what it was like to return to Mexico, or how the Stanford GSB helped you to make that transition back after you graduated.
So I did not come back to Mexico right after the GSB. I actually stayed in the Bay Area for a year working. And what I did notice, like the similarity between like myself, other classmates that immediately came back to Mexico, other classmates that went immediately back to their home countries, is we all sort of had this huge nostalgia / hungover from the MBA experience. We were used for 2 years. We were like making the best of every second we had at the GSB, either going to classes, spending hours deciding which classes you wanted to take, which clubs you were joining, which of the like 5 different brown bag lunches were available with different speakers from around the world, what fun activity you were going to do, which talk you attended, right? And so after this very exhilarating experience, like 2 years of a lot of, pouring in of knowledge, you come back to the real world and you have to sort of readapt that not everything has to be as fast paced, right? You have to pick up some relationships where you left them off, because if you're not very conscious about this, the GSB can be all absorbing because it is so high energy all the time. But I'll let everyone else jump in about what was their first few months out of the GSB like.
Yeah, so I can go with that. I mean, in a way, yeah, it's something that you're missing. Like, oh yeah, there's paradise in California. Yeah, it has its advantages. In some ways, there are some ways to stay connected. I mean, through the network. I'm a huge sports fan, so COVID ruined that this fall, but I follow the Stanford football game. I mean, the Stanford football team all around. So that's fun to watch when you're remotely. And in some ways, the network as well helps a lot in your transition. I was applying to consulting, so it was really easy, both through my classmates and through alumni. Just get a sense about what was the difference between the different. I mean, BCG, Bain, McKinsey, etc. You get a lot of support to that, and Mexico has a really strong connection to the GSB. It is always there's always some professor, even the dean coming here. So there are a lot of opportunities to stay connected. Likewise to the GSB, even contributing to sessions like this. It helps a lot to keep that connection strong.
Thanks, Guillermo. All right. Anybody else, or we'll move on? One question that I wanted to ask, just in terms of how you've grown as a leader, were there any particular skills that explicitly you learned at the GSB that have helped you in your career so far?
Yes, so many. I think what's interesting is you spend 2 years as a sponge absorbing a lot of knowledge, and some of it you know it's going to become useful at some point, but then 2 years later you get to this moment and you're like, oh, like that's what that was about, like that's what that class was about, and now I know what to do in this particular situation, right? I think you probably all heard about the touchy-feely class, which I think is super interesting. But I think for me, there was this other class called, I think it was called Conversations in Management, which for me, I think gave me the most sort of tactical tips on how to manage a lot of leadership decisions, right? And there was just basically, there was this one line that the professor used to say is like, your relationship with people is built one conversation at a time, so don't think that they're easy, because they're actually very complex. So I think tactically, just being aware of how those conversations actually impact your leadership brand and your style and how you develop a relationship with people just was very eye-opening for me, and it comes into use more and more every day, I think. And obviously, I mean, just the general sense that the GSB of like it's about people, that just becomes part of your DNA, right? It's more and more, it's not about the technical knowledge, and it's more about knowing how to think about a team and how to make sure that people are sort of motivated, engaged, and sort of driven by what they are doing as part of your team. So definitely changes you and gives you a lot of tools, and I think not only tools, but like a spirit of leadership that I think was different for me before those two years over there.
Adding to that, I think this just a slogan of Stanford of changing lives, changing organizations, changing the world. It's exactly that. It's like the way of having, of leading and having a change in our community and in the world is starting with people, right? So as you were mentioning, I think it's just this very big focus of people and impacting people and being effective at that. That's what eventually has the domino effect, and I think that's very empowering. And also maybe unrelated, but for me, I think it was very important. I don't know if, again, I'm sorry if I keep asking, if I'm kind of the older one here in the group, but if like what matters most to you and why Stanford SA, like for me, coming in, understanding what you're passionate about, not what you're good at, but what you're passionate about. I think, coming into the GSB, understanding where you're coming from and where you want to get, but really doing this study, analysis of what's most important to you. I think having that clear once you join the GSB, I think you take all this information and opportunities in a very different way, to really empower yourself to be able to achieve that as a leader, or whatever. Maybe tying back to the question of your goals. How I think understanding what you're passionate about, and not what you're good at. Which at the end it's end up being it's related, right? You're going to be good at what you're passionate about, but it's a very different approach, and I think that's very empowering for being a good leader and of reaching your goals, as it was asked before.
Thanks. Jesus, did you want to say something real quick? We're getting close to the end, so.
Yes, it's real quick, and I just want to give you, an idea of the level of depth of the classes in Stanford. Like, I think both Diego and Ana have mentioned the relevance of the personal consciousness and understanding that leading a group is leading people and so forth. And you can do that through, the touchy-feely class, but also through the leadership labs and so many other aspects. But there is also something, there used to be a class called Paths to Power. I don't know if it's still there. Mm-hmm. It really makes you understand that you are part of like an ecosystem working in organizations. And it really makes you try to understand the connections of the people and people wanting different things and so forth. So not being just naive about leading your team, but understanding the dynamics internally of the organization is as important to succeed as a leader as just being able to transfer your personal beliefs and your goals to your team. So I would say, like, try to be open on the internal and personal level, but also on the environment in which you work is also as relevant. And I think I take those two examples as the combination that is relevant for a successful leader coming out of the GSB.
Thank you. That's like a great anecdote to end on. Thank you all for your stories that you shared and the perspective that you brought to today's session. I'm sure that many of the participants will be happy to have heard from you.